The golden age of WWE. Larger than life, of fantasy. Step in the ring, feel history. Welcome to the golden WWE.
From a rocker to a heartbreak kid, we're talking about the 1992 year for Shawn Michaels. Mr. Mooney, are you ready for another Golden Era podcast?
Yes, Shawn Mooney is in the building.
With your leather vest.
To it, doesn't it? Yeah. And the Village People hat. We'll get to that.
Yes. Do you have them somewhere?
There's not a piece of leather that I can wear in my house except the belt.
Oh my! Well, it's getting spicy here already on the Golden Era podcast. But yeah, we're diving in. We did a whole podcast about the Rockers and their rise and then getting fired and brought back and won the tag team titles, but actually really didn't. But breaking up. They broke up. And when we talked about it, I personally thought Marty Jannetty was going to be the breakout star. What did you think about the Rockers? Who was going to be the breakout star for you?
Yeah, well, breaking up is hard to do, as they say. And in this case, it would launch another career and another would eventually fizzle. But at the time, and I've mentioned this before in the beginning when they came back after the first time, my thinking was all along there that, it was Marty who was kind of had the edge there as far as at least the impression of having it all together, not being this, crazy rock style lifestyle that they were both kind of living. He just seemed to be the more grounded, if you can believe that. And and even as far as their talent at the time in the ring, I thought, that Marty had the edge. But as we would see, as things would play out, things can go completely different than what your first impression was, and even in those early months, that first year. So it is pretty amazing how the whole story played out.
It's so bizarre because for years you'd hear about Shawn Michaels and his partying, but you'd also hear about Marty Jannetty and his partying. For you personally, when you were working with the Rockers or even seeing them, you used to tell stories about them walking wearing sunglasses in, being like, "Oh, we partied all night, but we're gonna have the best damn match." Like, which one did you see that was more like craze? Was it Shawn Michaels?
Well, I think that the two of them would, I wasn't trying to make it sound like that Marty wasn't as much of a partier. Like he didn't walk in better shape.
Like, hey, everybody.
Because I think that they were just when they really took off and the popularity of it all. And, it got to both of them, and it was hard enough for that life anyway. And then when you compound it by going out after the matches and staying up all night and partying and putting really bad things into your body, it's not a good combination. And, but they were living the life, and it didn't matter what city they were in. It didn't matter, what arena they were in. But they would drag in. And of course, I wasn't on the road all the time, so I didn't see all of it. But what I did see, I was just thinking, at some point, something's got to break here. You can't keep living that way without having some impact on you. And how could it possibly be positive? And that's exactly as it, what would happen. Because, and they weren't the only ones, let's not, we are discussing the Rockers today, but that was, that was the life then when things really took off in the WWE then, these guys had a choice to make. The guys that were the straight edges, as CM Punk might say, that really took care of themselves. And there were a lot of, there were some old school guys who really understood how this business worked and how short-lived that run could be. That did, they'd get done with their matches, they'd have dinner, and they'd go to their hotel room. But a lot of them didn't, and it was just too much. They were literally as big as rock stars in the world of professional wrestling. I remember, as I said, I might go out, I would have a beer or something at a bar, but as I said, my mentors Gorilla and Alfred had smartened me up enough to know, like, you're not going to be their friend.
Right.
Have these relationships. Don't shut yourself off, but don't make the mistake that you're one of their pals. And, so I saw it, and I'm not kidding, Steve. There would be, women 5 deep for these guys, and it would kind of work down the chain, where many of them, and they call them rats.
The ring rats.
The smart of the business knows about that. And they would be in every single city, everywhere you went, they were there, and they weren't some skanks or whatever. I mean, I'm telling you, dude, these women were just gorgeous. I mean, model worthy, and they would be there waiting, and it would kind of go down the pecking order there. They would hope they get a superstar, that it might be a manager,
Mr. Fuji.
and then wherever it went from there. But that's how it works. So imagine you're in your 20s, you're in your peak physical condition, you're making a ton of money, at least comparatively from what you made before.
Yeah.
And you've got women literally throwing themselves at you. That's a little hard to resist at that point in your life. And these guys took full advantage, and it would be, the partying was legendary. That it wouldn't be 1 or 2 women. There would be 5 or 6 in their hotel rooms. And, the debauchery was just legendary. Wow. And so at some point, something's got to give. And, you really didn't see it. And as I've said, you'd see these guys drag in, and they'd go out there and just blow the roof off, and do it again every day. It was just incredible. Wow. But as I said, at some point, you're going to start seeing some cracks.
Yeah, well, crack is one word. But January 11th.
I don't think they were doing that. But.
No, well, not there. Maybe someone was
later.
Yeah, definitely somebody. January 11th, 1992. Though the Rockers break up, Marty Jannetty is a coward, and he jumps headfirst through their barbershop window, as Bobby Heenan says. Those are his words, not mine.
He was trying to escape, right?
He was trying to escape. They were teasing the Rockers breaking up for months now, and finally in the WWF magazine there was an article, will the Rockers break up? And Shawn says, no, we're good. We're gonna be together forever. And they're all like happy, and Bruce Beefcake's happy, and Super Kick threw him through the window, and the barbershop window becomes famous forever. Now, did you think at this point that, okay, well, all right, they broke up. Like, what's next? Because Shawn Michaels obviously is the bad guy. But we've seen this before with Rick Martel and Tito Santana breaking up. We have seen this with other teams where one goes up, one goes down. This is the birth of are you the Marty Jannetty of the tag team? This becomes a thing where Shawn Michaels, star. Marty Jannetty, a lot of mistakes, a lot of bad luck happens to him. So how do you think Marty feels being this butt of the joke since 1992?
Well, unfortunately, a vast majority of it was self-inflicted. He was, and through the years, it's really, you look back and we can get into, Marty's travels later, but he was given one chance after another. And most people that, his offenses would have been, career ending.
Right.
But, Vince, you can't explain it any other way, had a soft spot for him in a sense. It wasn't, not that he wasn't a tremendous worker.
Amazing.
But the headache was not worth it. There was always something you just knew, even when, you have a good run where everything was great, but then you knew there one night there's going to be something he's going to do that's stupid. There's going to be, some encounter, or he'll have something on him he shouldn't. And so it was just that always hanging over. And kind of getting back to this where they were breaking up, you think Marty Jannetty wanted that to happen?
No.
I think that we're rolling, man. Well, what are you kidding? This is this is a great thing. We're awesome together. And Shawn was thinking, no, you know what? It's time.
Yeah.
So that breakup was, kind of symbolic of sending him through the window. Was kind of a forced breakup. Look, this is happening, and Marty, really didn't have a choice, and he had to go through with it. And then also he's thinking, okay, well, maybe there'll be something in this for me. Maybe I can find success, because you have to think at the time, neither one of them knew how, could I be successful solo here in the WWF? Can I? So they both seem to have that opportunity. I don't think it was really at the time, and they'd certainly seen the promise in Shawn, but as we've seen, there's been others been like that, and just for whatever reason it doesn't happen. It could have been Marty. Let's say Marty, found the right gimmick, or as a solo, or found the right storyline, and it just launched him. But as I said, all that, the bad luck. Is it really bad luck? To me, it was bad choices along the way in his road, and he was given many opportunities to correct that path, and just never seemed to be able to do it. Too many demons, too many, addictions to bad behavior. So it was kind of the way it was going to play out. But now we're at this point, so what happens with Shawn too? Now, Shawn probably had a lot of ideals, had a lot of confidence that he could do it. But as we'll discuss, he was pretty lost here. They were pretty lost of what to do with it. Where do we go? How do we make this happen? And eventually it kind of worked out.
Yeah. We have a Hulk Hogan podcast about this, where it's like you're finding yourself as you're going through the process. And Shawn Michaels, same exact thing. 92 is the year he figures it all out. He doesn't even have a finisher yet, all these little things. But the first time we see him in new gear, he's no longer in the rockers, tassels, and the colors and the music. Royal Rumble 1992, this is just a few weeks ago. Barbershop, now we're here at the Royal Rumble, and you're backstage from the Blue Lockers, which you blew my mind when those actually weren't real. It's just a wall, I believe you said.
And that payphone didn't work either, Steve.
No!
Sorry.
Listen, I thought the lockers were fake, but the phone that had to have worked, right? All right, fine. No 1-800-COLLECT commercials.
Side note, with how much fun Bobby Heenan, I think I've mentioned before, what he would do with the payphone, and guys would walk in and Bobby would say, "Hey, it's for you." They'd be like, "Hello?"
I don't even hear a dial tone.
Never got old.
No, that's amazing. That's a great joke. I would do the same thing still to this day to my kids with a cell phone. But you're backstage, you're hyping out people for the Royal Rumble. Barbarian's walking by, he bumps into you, a few other people, but then Shawn Michaels walks by you. And this is the first glimpse that we see on major television of Shawn Michaels now wearing white leather vest. He's looking dapper. He's looking different. He looks completely, it's like a night and day person. And you go over the footage with him about the barbershop window, but still, you saw him, you're next to him. It's iconic. Like, what are you thinking? Because he went from rockers, very bright tights, tassels, running to the ring. Now he's kind of posing to the ring, and he looks completely different.
Yeah. Well, and I, especially when you're changing a gimmick, you can't go, we'll ease into this. You've got to make the change right there and make it substantial so that it's a statement. And like you said, you go from the lime green and all the different colored spandex with the bangles to this. I don't know how really to describe it. It was kind of an S&M. I don't know if he'd run into the Village People the night before, as we would see that the hat would eventually come out.
Yeah.
But, and with and a little demolition with on the bright side, because it was white leather.
Yeah.
So they're experimenting here to see what's going to work. And as we would see, many different versions of this new Shawn Michaels. Yeah, as they were trying to figure out, okay, what is it? What is it that's going to pop here? What's going to make it happen?
He must have spent so much money on his Village People outfits because he had like assless chaps. At one point, he had mirrors on his shirt. Every time you would see Shawn Michaels, he was wearing a new outfit. In '92, he rocks kind of the same gear the whole time. It's like black, it's a little red, the leather. So it's a new addition. It's just like sometimes you're right. Like Barbarian and Warlord, when they were in the Powers of Pain, wore one outfit, and then you see them as Warlord and Barbarian separate. You're like, you're a hunter now, Barbarian, and
Yeah.
Warlord, you're like the Phantom of the Opera on steroids, and you have this cool little
Yeah. Yeah.
W. Like Shawn Michaels didn't go that far. He went far from Rockers, but he didn't go, all right, I'm gonna wear a Barbarian outfit. So I think whoever came up with the gear was a smart idea. And do you happen to know who at this time, who's the one deciding that Shawn Michaels should wear this? Is it Shawn Michaels or is it a collective unit of people?
Yeah, it was a collective, but really at the top of that, it was up to Shawn and what he was going to be comfortable doing and what he liked. So a lot of that, yeah, most of it was the fact that what he was thinking. He would get ideas that he wanted to try out, and they had really good people for costuming there to help him out. A lot of these private contractors, I guess you would say, that would work. Randy had his. And would make those outfits for them. And that's, what he was doing here. It's just getting ideas and experimenting and seeing and it wasn't so much, I mean, of course you're going to see, you're waiting for kind of fan reaction, but it's something that it was more to what he was going to be comfortable, what he felt good in and felt like, this is it. But it took a while.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. He hasn't become like the sexy boy yet. Like he's
No.
not at that level yet. Here at the Royal Rumble, though, in '92, it's for the world title. Ric Flair wins. Very famous Royal Rumble. Bobby Heenan and Gorilla Monsoon are amazing on commentary. If you never checked it out, we did a whole podcast about it.
Yeah.
With Shawn Michaels, number 6, him and Tito Santana get involved in this match, and they eliminate each other, and that's where that ends for Shawn Michaels at the Royal Rumble. Decent outing. He wasn't obviously going to win it. He just wasn't a tag team. They broke up. But him and Tito, they're connected heading into WrestleMania now. But originally, the plan is supposed to be Marty Jannetty returns from the barbershop window attack and fights Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 8. Rocker versus Rocker. New Rocker versus old Rocker. Like, it made complete sense. But
Absolutely.
Marty Jannetty, being his unlucky self, went to a club, had drugs in his pocket, got in a fight with someone over an underage girl that he was with, and guess what? He gets arrested. He gets fired from the WWF, and so now Shawn Michaels has to fight Tito Santana, which is a fine match, but it's bizarre and unfortunate for Shawn Michaels to start off this new era of himself, but yet he can't get over the rocker hump because the other half and the storyline is missing.
Yeah. Exactly. And it was such a natural transition, which would have helped both of them. And like I said, you say bad luck, Marty. No, bad choices, Marty.
True.
It's in a sense like parenting to me. I tell my son, I don't want to ever hear you telling me that you had bad luck or something happened because you didn't take responsibility for it. It's all about choices. And you look back at everything you do, and 90 whatever percent is going to be a choice that you made along the way. Getting associated with somebody, having an opportunity to go one way or the other, and you chose that way, which was not a good choice, and it led to what happened. So just listening to you talk about that opportunity just destroyed, blown up. What are you thinking? All of those things, that you're in a place you shouldn't be. That was the bad choice one.
Yeah.
Second choice is that you're carrying substances that you shouldn't have on your body, and then have an altercation. And whether or not she told you she was 18, choices, Steve.
Yeah,
and,
a lot of bad ones.
And that would, in a sense, a bit of a setback, of course, for Jannetty, but even for Shawn, because that was this perfect storyline. We needed that. People wanted to see the Marty come back at him and have some kind of a resolution between them.
Yeah.
And, who knows how that would have ended up for both of them.
What if Shawn loses and Marty wins? It's like Shawn Michaels doesn't go on to do anything.
Well, and not only that, maybe they could have had that run for how many months, and then they help each other become solo superstars, right? Because they've been together for so long and help launch each other in this world of singles. But, after that, Shawn's on his own, and Marty blows that whole storyline for both of them. And it was really, it was heartbreaking in a sense to see that, because I've always said I really liked Marty. I thought he was so incredibly talented, and it was just like, man, you just can't help yourself. That how many people in the world would just love an opportunity like that? There was a lot of other talented superstars out there, but Marty had it all. You hear people talk about some of the greatest matches they ever had was with Marty Jannetty.
Wow.
Because he was, and the way that when they were performing as a tag team, Demolition talks about that, just how their timing and, how good he was and how they were awesome at just, ad-libbing out there, free forming in a sense. They just had, working together, they were so in sync. And then to see somebody just, throw it away. And people, I know listening, who doesn't have somebody in their life that has been touched with addiction, and you keep saying to yourself, like, why do they keep doing this? My God, don't you see what you're doing? How it's destroying your life, how it is destroying other people that love you. And after a while, you have to accept that that's the choices they made in life. Whatever thought process they have, like they can't turn it around. They can't realize, okay, I've got to do something. And, they really do have to hit rock bottom to if they are going to be saved. But, I go on with this, but it was one of those situations where you're looking at the guy and just going, oh my God, it's on a platter for you. And not to say you didn't work your ass to get there, but good Lord, dude, what can't, somebody's got to snap you out of this. And he couldn't do it. And so here we are with a chance that would have been just awesome. I know that the matches would have been phenomenal. They talk about some of the house shows that when Marty and Shawn would be up against each other, and that they were unbelievable matches, just great. And that, as we know, we'll talk about later when they came back for that match, just how tremendous the house shows were. We talked about this last time.
Yeah, on 93.
And it is. It's heartbreaking that that's kind of the way it turned out for Marty, because he could have been up there remembered as the way Shawn is.
True. And I think Shawn Michaels, as you brought up, they had to pivot, obviously, for Shawn Michaels. They had a whole storyline prepared. Again, silver platter. Here you go. Rockers, break up. Now you're going to fight each other at WrestleMania. Perfect. Well, we don't have that. So we could have either just let Shawn Michaels drown and be like, oh, well, whoops, we have nothing for you. Sorry. Or we see how he does. So they give him Sensational Sherri. Sherri has been with the Macho Man. She has been a former women's champion, beating the crap out of Rockin' Robin and fighting Moolah, working with Ted DiBiase, all Hall of Famers, all superstars. Shawn Michaels is trying to become a single superstar. Having Sherri's by his side, is that just sprinkling the Sherri magic that will make him a star instantly because of who she was associated with before?
Yeah, and think about what Sherri, Sherri was a tremendous heel. And, once they figured that out, that that rub from Sherri, and to help him along the way, was great. But there were others too that they put into this, and Tito Santana should get some credit for those early days, because did everybody really want to see a Shawn Michaels Tito Santana? I mean, they didn't really have any history or reason to really have them in the ring together. But Tito was just such a great hand, as they say, such a great worker and a veteran who I think helped Shawn out a lot. So there were in these early stages, I think that they kind of realized, okay, we're not going to be able to really launch him into the stratosphere with this Rockers angle. So let's kind of reset here and get people around him who are seasoned veterans, big heat generators, veterans that can help him get even better because in the ring as a singles guy and the way it is today in the WWE, the WWF, and we'll kind of take it a little slower and let him develop and then get comfortable and see where it goes. And it took longer, but I think in the long run, that was a great way to do it, because let's say you did have that that big blast at the beginning when he still isn't really ready for it, and would he be able to have sustained it? And I just think that that letting him really find his way and find out what was going to work in the long run worked out even better.
Oh yeah. And again, Tito Santana and Shawn Michaels kick off WrestleMania 8. And if you've heard any story from wrestlers, they either want to be first or last. You don't want to be second or third. You want to get the crowd going. And Shawn Michaels and Tito. And before this match, though, Reba McIntyre sang. And when Tito Santana came down, he let her out of the ring. And Bobby's like, that's her sister. And they're like, what? What do you mean it's a sister? Reba McIntyre. And he's like, ah. Gorilla was not happy with Bobby saying that.
Will you stop?
Yeah, you stop? Reba McIntyre? It's not a Reba McIntyre.
It's such a stupid joke. It's so funny.
It is.
Reba.
Yeah, don't you understand? That's her sister. Dude, brilliant. Yeah. But Shawn Michaels actually would kick off WrestleMania 9 as well a year later against Tatanka. So, and that was also supposed to be Marty Jannetty versus Shawn Michaels, and that fell apart too because of Marty Jannetty. So, lots of fun
but you
here.
should mention, as you said, though, I mean, how important those first matches are. People think it's just kind of a,
No.
You should be honored that you get to be here for this. But the first one is just. But I remember that was, there was a lot of pressure on guys that would be that first match because, you've got the pay-per-view crowd and you've got to get them fired up from the beginning. It's got to be a great match. Yeah. And so, to get that to be that first match, as you said, they want to be the first or the last, was, pretty much an accolade in itself to the fact that they picked you to get this crowd going for the entire night.
Especially WrestleMania too, and it's Shawn Michaels' first WrestleMania by himself. He doesn't have Marty with him anymore. I guess he has Sherri, but he still has to perform in the ring by himself. And this is around the time he also gets his music. No longer the Rockers. We're gonna get "Sexy Boy," but later on Shawn would sing it, but Sherri sings it, so it's very shrill. It's very on point. Of God, this hurts my ears.
She didn't sound like Reba.
No, Reba. No. It's decent, but this song is still his theme music today. And wrestling entrance music is very important to the top tier wrestlers, from Hulk Hogan, Warrior, Undertaker, Bret Hart, Steve Austin. In today's world, people argue that you hear a song and you're like, who's that? And they walk out, oh, it's that person. You knew who was coming out once you heard Sherri singing, Shawn.
Yeah. And they were really talented with that entrance music. I don't remember if that, Jim Johnston was involved in that, but where they could take these guys and, have them actually be a part of the entrance music, and find a way to make their voice sound pretty damn good. Mm-hmm. And I know that, Sherri wasn't Reba, but the way they made that work, it worked. It was that song was, "Sexy Boy." Yeah.
I'm not your boy toy. Boy toy.
Yeah.
We'll do a karaoke later.
No, we won't.
I guess that's sad.
Maybe that's another episode.
That's another episode. You have to pay for
Yeah, because
that.
I'm great at weddings, by the way. Yeah. So
Oh,
let me know, folks, if you're looking for a wedding singer.
wow. Adam
Lots of
Sandler
Frank.
is right in
Lots of
front of me.
Frank. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, look at that. Look at that. All right,
Mhm.
okay. Well, I did like the music and up to this point though, Shawn Michaels is not the Heartbreak Kid. Like that is not HBK is
On
not his
HBK.
thing.
Right.
I remember watching on a random episode of Superstars, you just hear Mr. Perfect who's on commentary say to McMahon, because hey McMahon, he's the Heartbreak Kid. And boom. Shawn
Yeah.
Michaels said he heard Mr. Perfect say that over commentary and said, oh my God, like that's perfect. He started having a finisher called the teardrop suplex. Like he didn't use the super kick as a finisher yet. He's still finding himself. What do you think of that? Because nicknames are very important to a lot of wrestlers. Some don't need them, but some it's part of who they are. Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, is part of who he is.
Yeah, and it wasn't necessarily that Sean heard that over commentary. That that the story goes that Kurt actually had a conversation with him. He was kind of trying to figure it out, and Kurt came up with that. Heartbreak Kid. HBK, and so of course when he's going to be in commentary, he's going to work it in. He's going to start putting it over. But yeah, and when I look back at that, that period of in the woods where he was just kind of wandering around trying to find all this stuff, it's almost like you wonder, okay, what was he doing there with all this stuff during that time? But then once it was Heartbreak Kid, it was like boom.
Right.
So it really was kind of interesting the way that it's. Stone Cold talks about the story of how his name came here. They had all these lame-o, names, and the way that he had it, that I guess the partner he had at the time, the woman he was with, served him tea, and I think she had some kind of English influence or something, and said something, drink your tea, or it's going to go stone cold, or before it gets stone cold, and he's like,
My God.
that's it, well, that's it, stone cold,
Not Chili
and
McFreeze.
so it's funny, like it's as three little words, Heartbreak Kid, to Stone Cold, and it's just suddenly just boom, that's it, and that really was it, because it just seemed to fit him, and he became that whole persona of being this arrogant. The whole thing with started with Shawn Michaels that left the building, kind of the Elvis.
I loved it.
Look, and you could just see it. Then it was just starting to make sense. It was just starting to use the feel, and this is now I'm getting to where, yeah. And when that happens, and you start building that character within it, Shawn became that character in a sense. But it impacts everything you do, everything you're in the ring, because then you're in the ring performing these moves or whatever. But he's HBK, and that whole attitude, everything he does comes with it. Until you find that, it's just a little bit. This is missing a little bit. The timing's a little bit. Then it just all seemed to come together with that. And I guess he has Kurt Hennig to thank for that.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. He reminds me of Rick the Model Martel when Rick the Model Martel was just Rick Martel, and he's a bad guy. He's just wearing purple until he started being the model, the arrogance, the little jacket. I'm a model button. It was like, boom, you figured out who you were. You aren't just a bad guy. Like Shawn Michaels is, oh, I'm a bad guy, but what kind of bad guy am I?
Yeah.
And he's the sexy boy. He's the guy that, all the men are jealous because their wives are staring at him. Like that's who Shawn Michaels, the sexy boy, Heartbreak Kid. He's got his music. He's got a heel manager. Like we are figuring it all out. And I do love the Elvis references because out of nowhere you'll just hear Bobby Heenan or Perfect be like, "Hey McMahon," or like, "Hey Monson, did you hear?" He's like, "What? Shawn Michaels has left the building." He's like, "Oh my God!" He's like, "I don't give a shit that he was still even here." So it's nice to see. And again, we're elevating talent. We're growing. And in the summer, we have this event, July 21st, 1992. It's the first official WWF ladder match, but it doesn't happen on television. Eventually, it's released on a VHS tape, and it's Smack 'em, Whack 'em is what it was called, the VHS tape. Very good name. Chili McFreeze. Those are the same people coming up with Stone Cold Steve Austin names.
Yeah.
It's terrible. But this is the first ladder match. Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart have it. Bret Hart also was in a tag team. Now he's also running the ranks, becoming a huge single star. What'd you think about this? Because having a ladder match, this was revolutionary for the time in the WWF.
Yeah. You know, I used to think when we'd get too gimmicky, like it was like too much stuff they would do. But this was fun, and it had this extra peril to it, and I'm still blown away by some of these ladder matches. You look back at them, and really, and the bumps that these guys would take. So yeah, I mean, I was all in. I thought that, but it takes some special performers to pull it off. Than just I mean, think about it. You have really one prop in a sense, a ladder, but all the different things you can do, and it would get to the point where everybody's trying to outdo the other. You get up and from the top of the ladder do a choke slam or something. Where these guys are
killing themselves.
Yeah, and the other things that I when you see these guys, the ladder falls over and then they land on the top of the ladder, you just got to think, oh my God, that has got to just be brutal, and it was. And come back with these horrific marks on their backs and from falling on these. But it was exciting, and it would come down to inches of getting whatever was involved, and then it being blown up, guys knocking them off the ladder or something like that. So it was. I thought it was an awesome match.
It's interesting too because Bret Hart wanted to have this on television, like on a pay-per-view, and he told Vince about it. Vince is like, "Oh, I don't get it. What are you talking about?" And so,
with these matches though, Steve, that Bret, and we've talked about it before. It was just so every single move. He worked out these matches in his head from beginning to end, and to do something like this in the storyline to just have it plotted out. That's how Bret did things. And when you get another partner in there that is worthy of that, that is able to put that all together as well, it's magic. And I think that you see early on though, despite their differences, the way they felt about each other, as we would later learn. My God, I don't know if there's ever been two. They're right up there. You talk about when two guys work together, and it just is pure magic. No one can deny that.
No, Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart are growing as talents in this year. You have Bret Hart main eventing SummerSlam. You have Bret Hart versus Roddy Piper at WrestleMania. Like they're not neck and neck because Bret's been Intercontinental champion, but like they are. Bret is up here and Shawn's chasing after him. You can clearly see, but this ladder match, Vince didn't understand it. So Bret's like, all right, let's have a ladder match at like a taping and you can just see it. Like we'll tape it and we won't release it. Well, you can see what it is. And Shawn Michaels gets involved with that. And years would go on where WrestleMania 10, the first one we think is Shawn Michaels versus Razor Ramon in a ladder match at Madison Square Garden. And apparently Bret was very upset with Shawn Michaels because in Bret's eyes, he invented this match. He wanted to put it out there, and there's Shawn and Razor getting the credit for being the first, when in reality, if you're doing history, but it can't be like the first ladder match. When you go and Google things, and you're like, what's the first ladder match ever? There's been wrestling companies that have been going on for hundreds of years at this point. You know what I mean? Like, it's I can't imagine that Bret was like, oh.
Ladders were involved?
Yeah, like he just invented it out of his brain one day. Like, I think he saw it somewhere and was like, we'll bring it over here and we'll do it our style, not the same way we've seen it previously. So, but is that the beginning of Bret not liking Shawn Michaels, being like, you son of a bitch? Like, what are you doing? Why are you taking my match? But in reality, if you work for a company, as you know, you come up with an idea, that's not your idea. It's the company's idea.
Yeah. Well, I think that their animosity towards one another was just a kind of a growing, slow burning thing
Okay.
as it went on. I mean, if you really come down to it, they were polar opposites, especially at that time, of how they approached their business.
Hmm.
Bret was very methodical. Like you said, he would do yellow pads of notes on a match that would have everything down to the second and the finish and everything like that. And his respect for the business and how you took care of things and all these honorable and everything. Like Bret, that was built into him from being in the family that he was in, Stu Hart. And then you got Shawn, where in many ways, and I'm not saying it was easy for him, but he made it look like it was easy for him.
Right.
And how he approached things. And as it's well documented, Shawn wasn't the nicest guy then, and he was that kind of HBK character. He became that, where he was just difficult to work with, and I think that he had injuries and nagging things and stuff like that. But it just was, they were in a lot of ways oil and water, that they just didn't mix, and they were two very polar opposites when it came to their approach to the business. But you cannot deny that once they got inside those ropes, boy, did they mixed well. It was a great dressing in a really lame way to
A salad reference
to get it there. Yeah, but I will go there on that one.
We went
but it was, I mean, you could not deny the two of them, man, together in the ring was just special. I mean, it was, everybody, whenever you'd see the boys in the back, and everybody was watching. Everybody was near a monitor, or, So, but as far as the way they did things, could not have been more different. And that, with a few other things that got mixed in there, really created that, and it just kept getting worse and worse as they went on through the years.
Yeah, it definitely started probably when they were a tag team, ladder matches being stolen. Well, that's a different podcast idea.
Yeah.
But in the summer, we head into SummerSlam 92. Shawn Michaels, he has a match against Rick the Model Martel. Two bad guys fighting, but the storyline is Sensational Sherri. Every time she's ringside, Rick the Model Martel sees her and winks at her. Oh my. Like they're tiptoeing around. Does Sherri like the model and like Shawn Michaels? Who will she end up with? So they agree to have a match. But the rules are, we agree we will not hit each other in the face.
No, you got it.
This is the moneymaker, the model, Shawn Michaels. We can't do that. But Sherri wears an outfit that is magical for a lot of fans at SummerSlam. The butt's missing. The butt is missing from the fabric when she comes out. And what a weird storyline, but a great storyline. What a weird concept. I mean, all right, we're going to have no hitting in the face, but then Sherri's going to come out with her butt just hanging out, which is great for everybody. No complaints there. It's just, I think it's so different, and I love it.
Yeah, and the storyline was as old as time. Coveting another man's partner, or it was and whether or not that attraction was real, but the model knew that that's how you could get under Shawn Michaels' skin. And Sherri was in very good shape at the time. She could pull off wearing these outfits. Risque, I think, is, boy, putting it mildly, in some of the stuff she would put on, and you think about, whoa. It was it worked. And Sherri was good at, she was, flattered by it. That
she loved it.
I've got two men who are, enamored with me.
Of course.
And Rick pulled it off too. But I love that idea. I remember that whole thing with, do whatever you want, but don't touch the moneymaker. Don't touch the business here. It's like, which they couldn't do.
Right. In the match, too, it's funny. He's like, I'm going to punch you. He's like, hey, don't punch me. All right. I'm going to punch you. No.
All right, got to go to the body shot. Yeah.
That is fun. Eventually, though, when they punch each other in the face, Sherri is on the apron and she passes out. So And this is where Sherri gets picked up like a rag doll over and
Yeah.
over again. The model goes to check on her. Shawn checks on her. They pick her up. They drop her. And then now she's not
Well,
she's like being dropped. There's
yeah,
no, oh, I'm falling over and I put my hands down first. She's on the cement. And
yeah.
it happens over and over again. Shawn then picks her up and her ass is right here and everyone can see it. And Bobby yells out, "It's a full moon in London."
One of the greatest, one of the greatest moments in professional history,
That's right. Hogan
professional wrestling
body
history.
slamming
Oh,
Andre and
yeah.
all that.
And you got it. Yeah. And Steve, you got to think of, Sherri was no Miss Elizabeth. She was not petite in any sense.
No, she was bigger than Shawn Michaels.
Yeah, and she was, I don't remember her height, but she was pretty tall. And then, she'd have those spikes on, but she had to go for, I don't know, $175 or something. I mean, she was solid. And, and when she would just be limp, and then, and they're trying to have like this chivalrous moment, and you're trying to pick her up. She's just like, boom. And when they, she knew they were going to drop her. She said, you better drop me. Don't make it look like it, so just
they throw her.
great stuff. The comedy brought in was, I thought that was awesome. I thought that, and, people think like, oh, what a, gimmick match. Well, yeah, it was. And it was from the very beginning. Yeah. So adding that comedic flair to it and the full moon shot, I mean, it was
beautiful.
People were rolling. People were rolling. And it was, it was what it was, but I thought it was very entertaining. People can break it down for it wasn't what you'd call, this
catch can style match.
But it wasn't this, technically beautiful choreographed matchup. It wasn't.
A story.
It was the whole thing. I mean, come on. You're going to have a match where you're not allowed to touch each other in the face.
Right.
It's right along the lines of the Jake Roberts, the blind match where you've got the hoods, and so it was awesome because you go into it knowing that that's what this is, and let's enjoy the ride.
Oh yeah. Oh, I enjoyed it when the model comes out with a bucket of water and dumps it on Shawn and Sherri. She wakes up screaming. Yeah. And we go back.
The makeup's all over the place.
But she's like pretending to be unconscious and look up to see the two men fight each other.
Kind of that wink,
like Vince is like, "Oh, hey, there she is, I see her." And Bobby's like, "What are you talking about? She's asleep. She's not around." That was a great SummerSlam match. Honestly, I love that stipulation.
Yeah, and the idea that finally Shawn just gives up and it's just the over the shoulder carry.
He's no longer going to carry over the threshold.
Yeah, it's not going to be this Gone with the Wind or like it's just.
Come on, you sack of potatoes. We got to get out of here. Good times. Good times.
Yeah, it was.
It was.
And I think, and Sherri, I think enjoyed that too, because she got to have some fun with it. It wasn't, she just didn't have to be this screaming, nasty, horrible, distractor at ringside. So it was fun.
You went backstage, I think it's you and the Nasty Boys, and they're like, "The Wicked Witch of the West she's melting." Like, oh, I just remember that.
I just remember and the makeup was just like, all over her face.
How do I look? You look great, Sherri.
And she wakes up, and she always wakes up swinging, as I can attest to.
Yeah, I know you have been beaten up by Sherri before. It's true. So we're having a great overall first half of '92 for Shawn Michaels, but unfortunately for other wrestlers, they fall out of favor. At that same SummerSlam we're talking about, the British Bulldog defeated Bret Hart for the Intercontinental title in the main event. This is unheard of. Well, British Bulldog, he gets in trouble as well because him and Ultimate Warrior were unfortunately getting HGH suppliers linked to them, and the steroids were coming to their houses, and Vince McMahon was involved with the federal steroid investigation. So guess what, Bulldog? You're out of here. We got to get the Intercontinental title off of you now because we can't have one of our champions being caught up in all of this. Shawn Michaels gets the Intercontinental
Good
title on an
call.
episode of Saturday night's main event, one of the last ones that ended up on Fox because NBC canceled the contract with the WWF. A lot
Yeah.
to unpack there, but why do you think Shawn Michaels was the guy that they thought, hey, he seems reliable?
Well, more reliable than others in line. Yeah. But it was time. I think they felt he was ready, and a belt would help him. So, as we've talked about before, some guys, don't necessarily need that, but this was his progression as his ascension in the WWF, and the opportunity, like, and choices once again with the Bulldog. But in a sense, that whole situation too. You have to wonder if things weren't going on behind the scenes with the whole steroid, trial and everything like that. Would they have been able to kind of, cover that up? Had kept going,
Oh,
probably.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was because it was so sensitive at the time, and so much in the forefront of what was happening with the WWF at the time, that it was one of those things. Like, I'm sure Vince was like, "Man, I hate to do it, guys, but yeah, you got to go. Can't have you here. Maybe down the road everything's cooled off, as we would see, things would change, but they had to make that move." And Shawn, I can't really think of who else would have. They were thinking at the time who would have stepped in,
Mm.
and the timing of it was right, and it did help him to get that strap.
Yeah, oh yeah, it elevated him to a whole new ball game. Because you're right. Like, honestly, in '92 at this point in time, who's the wrestler that you put something on? Because for a while, the Intercontinental title was, hey, we're gonna give it to a guy, and then eventually that guy most likely will become world champion. Macho Man, Ultimate Warrior. It's like the testing ground. Can this guy go to the next level, or is he just going to be at the Intercontinental title level? And Shawn Michaels, I think, proved it here. And so it's just unfortunate for British Bulldog, where you have this amazing SummerSlam moment with Bret Hart, and Bret Hart goes off to win the world championship. British Bulldog gets in trouble and eventually gets fired in November of '92, along with the Ultimate Warrior, just destroying the card of Survivor Series that they've been building for months. So it's really strange that we talked about Marty screwing up for Shawn Michaels, Bulldog screwing up eventually helped Shawn Michaels. Like, Shawn
Yeah.
Michaels keeps getting all these opportunities and figuring out what to do while everyone else is just falling at the wayside. What a fighter, I guess.
Yeah, well, and Survivor, that, just some people, you see it, and that no matter what, they come through it. That, they had big explosion and the fire and everything like that, and then all of a sudden, through the smoke, there they come. There, they walk out, and Shawn was like that. But also, it, and Vince has talked about this over the years, that it came. It's just part of the business. This is another thing that went back to the territories. You have these guys that are gonna get in trouble. It just kind of comes along with the business. You're out on the road like that. You're involved with the public. You're well known, and everybody's they're human like everybody else, and have their failings, and so it's kind of built into the cake, in a sense that, like, Vince didn't know who it was going to be, but he always knew, every week coming in, maybe there's going to be something. You've got guys all over the country. They're only in the arenas for so many hours, and the rest of the time they're out there traveling, going to gyms, going to bars, staying in hotels. So you kind of build that in there. And I've heard Bruce talk about it too, where they would just say, okay, it was never this foreboding. It was always, okay, now what do we do? How do we fix this? How do we move forward? It was always, that's the way Vince always looked at it. And so, yeah, British Bulldog, bad choices, Ultimate Warrior, bad choices. But at the same time, it's okay. Now what? What's the next opportunity here? And they always find a way to make it work. And in some cases, worked out 10 times better than if they would have stayed that same path. So it was just part of doing business that, Vince has talked about many times, that you just know that this is what happens. It's part of your everyday, business of just keeping things going, keeping the company moving. These things are going to happen, and then you just pivot. And they became very, very good at that.
Oh my God. The back half of 92 from October to December. Listen to this flipping around. All right. So you got Bulldog and Warrior getting caught, so they get fired. Well, the original plan is the world champion, who is Ric Flair, teaming up with who just came in a few months ago, Razor Ramon, against the Macho Man and Ultimate Warrior. In October, Ric Flair loses the world title at a not taped, I call them house shows, and then eventually airs on primetime television. Ric Flair loses the world title to Bret Hart. They have no story. This is in the middle of the rivalry between Macho Man and Ultimate Warrior. Okay. Warrior gets fired, so he's out. Mr. Perfect, who's the bad guy, who's the confidant of Ric Flair, then gets turned babyface, returns to the ring after being out since SummerSlam 91. He's now on the team of the Macho Man, which logically makes no sense because Macho Man and Perfect have also been fighting. Okay. Yeah. So Bulldog's also fired. Well, Shawn Michaels has to become the Intercontinental Champion. It airs on November 11th. November 25th is Survivor Series, where Bret Hart now is suddenly the world champion. Shawn Michaels is suddenly the Intercontinental Champion. There is no Warrior. And Bulldog's supposed to fight the Mountie. That match is canceled. Both are gone from the company. And the main event now is no longer Ric Flair and Razor Ramon versus now Macho Man and Mr. Perfect. It turns out to be champion versus champion, Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels. You only have from the 11th to the 25th to promote this event as two champions fighting. Now, you're a part of the event center. You understand. How difficult is it to flip all your television programs that you shot a month ago that need to air now, but now it has to have updated information?
Yeah, that was another thing. That was part of the business. I told you that we would have the red phone on the table next to me, that they were always doing changes, and I hated that thing. It would blink, wouldn't ring, and whenever that thing went off, I was just, oh man, it was never good news. It just was a matter of like, how bad, how many markets do we have to redo, and this was big, but again, pivot. You got to keep jabbing, and that's kind of the way they did things. That they found a way to make it work, and who wouldn't want to see that match? And it was a great idea when you're thinking about it. You got two champions going to be in the ring, and two really great performers. So it was, it wasn't in the original plans, but as we saw, that anytime those two were in the ring together, it was going to be a tremendous match.
Just think of this. January 11th, 92, it airs on television. The Rockers break up. Shawn Michaels tosses Marty through the barbershop. That's the beginning of 92. The end. He's main eventing his first pay-per-view against the world champion. Talk about an amazing year for someone who their tag team partner recently got caught and fired, so that whole storyline has to blow up, and you got to figure out what's next. Talk about, again, 92 for Shawn Michaels, a lot of luck maybe, also a lot of talent, but in the end, like, are you surprised that Shawn Michaels went from tag team wrestler breaking up to Intercontinental Champion to being in the main event of a pay-per-view, which was unheard of for a lot of people? A lot of people were, it's always Hogan or Savage or Warrior.
No, because I think that, at least for myself personally, I just knew, what a great wrestler he was, and how great he was in the ring. And you could see that confidence building. It was different than when he was in the tag team, because it was all him. Mm-hmm. And you could see, even though we're saying it took a while till he found it, but then when you look at the big picture here, and you say like in 1 year, that's where he went from here to here was pretty incredible. But at the same time, there were those early few days or months that where he was still trying to find that what it was, it. But you could see as each time he was going in there, he was getting better, and it wasn't just necessarily, you have to, it's a whole different mindset when it's just you, when you're not a tag team, when you don't have someone else in there to, pick you up, or when there's different moments in the match, and so it's all on you. But you could see as he went along there, he just kept getting better and better at that part of it. He was always great wrestler. He had that down, but to be able to do it as a solo artist, and then it's the whole mental thing, and becoming that character, that once he, you could see that he was there, it wasn't a surprise that they wanted to push him, because the reaction he was getting, that's what it all came down to. What are those people out there, how they reacting to this guy? And, it was working on all cylinders at that point. So not a surprise at the end of the year. At the beginning, everybody's wondering, okay, what happens? This could go one way or the other. And it just kept getting better. It just kept going up and up and up.
It's insane to think what a year he had. And towards the end of 92, that's when Marty Jannetty got hired again. He returned to the WWF, rekindling that storyline. But Shawn Michaels, at this point, he's moved on. Like, you can see that he no longer just turned heel, and he used to be a rocker. Like, Shawn Michaels is no longer a rocker. He's the Heartbreak Kid. He's the sexy boy. Like, when Marty returns and they have the entire angle with Sherri getting hit in the face with glass, kind of separating them. And of course, they go off in the 93 and have a match at Royal Rumble 93. But while Shawn's main eventing Survivor Series, Marty Jannetty is kind of returning, trying to find his footing again in a new world. But Shawn Michaels, he's on fire at this point. Again, he'll have an amazing 93 as well. Bring in Diesel to be his muscle. The Click will be born. He'll main event pay-per-views, DX, all that good stuff. But I think 92, I'm so happy we talked about it with you today, because, you didn't bust out your leather vest, whatever. But we still had a fun time, talking about Shawn Michaels. And would you say like this is the year that he figured all the little pieces out? Because without 92 and all the mishaps with Marty and the Bulldog, without these little pieces, I don't think he would have been able to swim in the shark-infested waters.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say he had it all figured out.
Some.
But I think that it was really a standout year all the way around. It changed the course of his life forever. Yeah. Because let's just say that they stayed together and were like this tag team that would have probably be remembered as one of the best ever, but you would always remember them as him as the Rockers. You wouldn't remember like Shawn Michaels. Right. And this was the year that changed it forever. But he would continue to evolve. And then, of course, we know that he had to step away to, for a whole other different transition and come back to even greater heights. Yeah. But this year was really, I'm sure if he looks back, what really, a year that just changed his life forever, it would be 92, because it was everything that he could have imagined in this career, in this business. And not even knowing what was to come, but definitely a standout year. And I'm really glad we talked about it, because he never looked back. Oh, no. And again, thank you for watching, everyone, on the Prime Time with Sean Mooney Network. Thanks for listening as well. We always appreciate your comments, your questions, so send them down below. But I got to say, always a good time talking with you, Mr. Mooney, about the golden era of the WWF, and today was no different with Shawn Michaels' 1992 year. But I'm Steve Fall, he's Shawn Mooney. We're both sexy boys. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
It's the golden age of WWE. WWE.